Ancestor Shrine. I am your host, Tatami, and today I thought that I would reach out and do something new, and we would talk a bit more political on this channel. At first, I wasn't sure that I wanted to do that, but then I remembered Hoodoo is a political act. It's a revolutionary act. It's an act that our ancestors did as a form of resistance. And at times there were, ways that we had to hide and ways that we had to keep ourselves safe. But hoodoo was a constant. And no matter what name we gave it, no matter what form it took on, it was still hoodoo and it was still of the ancestors. So that's why I felt compelled to reach out, since this is a very woman-centric channel. This is a very woman-centric space. We've talked about being the sacred woman. We've talked about being the hoodoo version of the sacred woman specifically in the last couple of years. Before I took my long hiatus. But I really felt that in the wake of all of the politics that I've been watching go down in the last few months, which it has been such a wild ride the last few months, hasn't it? It's been there's just been so much going on. There's just been so much that can distract us. It feels like we're already back in that space where every single week something huge is happening, some huge headline is there. And so I thought, why not speak about what our next steps would be, what those would look like as women and femmes who have looked back at our ancestors, and we want to learn from them. We want to learn from what they've done, but we also want to make sure we're progressing, we're pushing forward, even in the face of uncertainty, even in the face of threats, even in the face of threats of removal of civil rights, bodily autonomy, all sorts of things that we've come to take for granted as women, the right to a no-fault divorce, things like that. So I want to talk about, how we move forward, how we advocate for those rights that our ancestors fought so hard for, how we still engage with ourselves without giving up, and also how we keep fighting if that's really like what you're capable of doing, when that's what you're capable of doing. And, I really want this to be something that focuses on ourselves, on our communities, on our families. And I want this conversation to be one that gives us some tools to think about. And that's as much for me as it is for you all when I read off this list of like physical things we can do, spiritual things we can do, and how we reconcile that with the sacred woman that we've been trying to be, the hoodoo woman that we've been trying to be. And I'm hoping maybe if those don't exactly apply to you, that, you're able to find inspiration within those at the same time. You may practice another type of ATR. You may practice, a different way than I do. You may not be the same type of root worker or hoodoo that I am, or the same type of feminist, womanist that I am, or the same type of person when it comes to politics. But I'm hoping that we can all connect and we can all find some kind of inspiration where we can see ourselves still as capable within using this tool that has been a political tool for the entirety of our existence here in the Americas. And of course, before that, but especially here in the Americas, did our religion and our beliefs and our rights become politics as hoodoos, as women, as femmes, as root workers, as Black people. I do want to also let you all know that I have a class coming up, a workshop coming up this weekend for Ugly Jugs. We have discussed Ugly Jugs on this channel before, but this class is going to be strictly for those of us who are here. So if you would like to learn about Ugly Jugs, the history, tracing back to Africa, how to use them as a root worker, I would really, really love for you to check the link that I have. It's in several of the last videos. It's an Eventbrite link for the North Star Hoodoos, and I would love to see you there this weekend. It's from 4 to 7 Eastern time for both of those days. All right, so the first one I'm going to say is obvious after that long intro. The first one I want to say is obvious. I think it's really important for us to focus on our finances, focus it on buying from Black women, buying from fellow Hoodoos, keeping that money within each other as possible, especially as the holidays come up. This is something that I think a lot of us probably already do. I know I do. I know when I've been wanting to buy spiritual items or any other type of item, that I absolutely go ahead and buy those different things. Hold on, you guys. My children left the TV on up here. Okay. All right. So I think that part is really important, keeping that money within the community, but it can be difficult. The second one is birth control. I think that one is a really important one to consider because as sacred women, sacred women who have often studied under Queen Afua, we understand often the dangers of birth control, of getting on hormones, of trying to, make sure that we remain healthy within our wombs and we aren't trying to control that with hormones. At the same time, I do think that it's really important for us to consider the alternative that has now been presented, which is this idea that you might die in childbirth. You might be forced to have children that you are wanting to have. And in that case, it can be really dangerous in some of these states to leave it up to that, especially in the fact that we're about to, they have all the branches of government and the Supreme Court. So who's to say it's not going to be just left up to be a states' rights issue? And with that fear in mind, I do think that people who are able to use certain forms of hormonal birth control should absolutely try. I did finally manage to find one that worked for me after using almost all of them, which is the implant one in my arm. I used almost every single other one, and they didn't work for me. And some of them really did harm me because I just kept using them even when in the face of this. This was before I became a sacred woman. I just kept using it because I figured that was better than the alternative. But I realized that this is something that we need to recognize, not just from the sense of the body of, oh, I might harm myself, but from having the birth control, but also weighing the harm of not being able to get the proper medical care, not being able to get the proper medication, because we already have the highest mortality rate, right? That's why I ended up becoming a postpartum doula. That's when Black women tend to die the most. And that's where a lot of my passion came from, because I felt like I did not get the care that I needed. And in the many, many years since then, in about the 8 years, and almost 9, there'll be 9 in February, since I had the twins, I've come to realize that, this subject is so nuanced. There's so many reasons why we are struggling as Black women to get the care that we need. And so that's the reason why I think partially we need to consider what our reproductive options are now. A lot of these birth control options can thankfully last 3, 4, 5, 8 years now, but also we need to consider our own education on these subjects, because we are struggling right now with the impact of lack of education, lack of understanding of what these different birth controls can do and why. And we're still at a deficit of birth workers that we could use in these medical spaces. We're still at a deficit of birth workers that we can use who are highly educated as like midwives, doctors, gynecologists, we're still underfunded and not able to afford doulas. So even the influx of Black doulas, without the influx of cash aid assistance to get these doulas into the rooms of the Black women who need to have them, we're running into obstacle after obstacle with, it's just like the organ donor issue, oh, everybody, we Black people aren't getting the organs, but it doesn't matter if we all went out and donated a kidney today. The kidney still wouldn't go to a Black person. And that's really the issue, right? We have so many more doulas. I'm a doula, she's a doula, but we aren't able to get the doulas into the rooms because who can afford the price of a doula? And then so also the doula herself can live, feed her family, afford a life, and so these are the issues that I really feel we need to focus more on for the birth control issue, and also birth in general, because birth is about to get so much more dangerous. And we also do have to realize that herbs, despite how much we love them, do need to be a last resort. There is a reason why abortion is so much more safe than all of the other issues that we had prior, and there's a reason why we need to fight for that right, because it was dangerous before. Giving birth was dangerous for pretty much all of humanity. And now we have a very safe, concise way to help people who are in their birth. We have so many different ways to help if something goes wrong that we did not have in the past. And that is a lot of what is being threatened to take away. I mean, the verbally, we're being told no, 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 but physically, that's what the reality that we're seeing. And that's why sacred women and hoodoo women are going to be that much more important in the years that come to pass, in the years that are going to come to pass, because we're in for a dark period of history. And by that measure, for the people who can and should think about it, going in and getting those procedures that might be done, vasectomies are easily reversed and, given. And they're a lot easier than hysterectomies, which if people are looking for that, it's also something that may or may not be taken away in the future. So my next ones are for people who are single, not for people, if you're in a loving relationship, this obviously has nothing to do with you. But if you are single right now, thinking even more clearly about the person that you want. I know that we talk about a sacred woman can pull somebody out of the mud and dress them up and all of that good stuff. But should she have to? And should she subject herself to potential violence or threats of violence by doing so? Absolutely not. Being very careful about the people that you are around is going to vastly should vastly change. It's going to be vastly more important now than ever. As we saw the rise of directly, not even 24 hours after Trump came into presidency, we saw a rise of misogyny, we saw a rise of sexism, we saw a rise of homophobia. And this is not a coincidence. Being very careful about these things is really important. It is really important because you don't want to be the one who finds out, right? You don't want to be the one who, oh, they're just joking. And then you're the one who is constantly either subjugated, abused verbally, abused physically, or worse. And so for that matter, I just realized I skipped a point on my buying Black point, which was not just to hire Black women, contract out to Black women, but just to make sure that you are looking for those opportunities. I saw somebody the other day talking about going on Fiverr, and you can choose to help out a woman of color in an underdeveloped country by sending the cash to her, having her work on the job. The money will go further for her. She will need it more, and this is just another way to keep money within groups of people who actually need the money as best as we can. Obviously, this is a very difficult task to do in a world where, frankly, Amazon has taken over so many places that I used to shop. It's just almost impossible unless I want to pay double. To leave certain huge conglomerates behind. But to the best of our ability, this is one way that we can fight back, as well as not consuming as much, which has been kind of my attempt. I haven't bought myself something in a long time in the regards of like clothes like I used to, especially. And when I do, I've been shopping or, browsing at Black owned situations, as much as possible. The part of the reason why I also urge so heavily to be very careful about future partners and future children with partners, and focusing, perhaps considering donors instead of a situation where you're now trapped with an unstable individual, is because it's very clear that financials are where a lot of Project 2025's motives are coming from. The opportunity to kneecap you financially, to saddle you with a child that you may or may not be ready for. And that can get you into a lot of financial worries when you do that, because you'll be what am I trying to say? Because you'll have a child that you're not ready for. You are now in a financial place that you are not ready for and that you can't as easily get out of, which is why they used to have it so that we weren't able to, open bank accounts. We weren't able to get credit cards. We weren't able to rent if we already had kids, that sort of thing. Well into the 80s, some of this stuff. And that's kind of where a lot of these people are advocating for. They're really advocating for us to have no-fault divorces back, to not get as much money, even if you are the person who stayed at home and supported someone else's career, even if you are the one who had to halt your career for any sort of reason, or, even if it's for child support. A lot of them don't want to pay for their own children, even if they are not the primary parent. So it's very clear that the financials are something that a lot of these people are trying to hone in on when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to the women's independence. I did also want to, talk about spiritually, guarding our energy. This can mean staying away from places that treat women as a commodity or an experience, staying away from places that, such as bars, or those places that kind of require women as their main appeal, and then you show up as that main appeal. Those places can be some of the most dangerous places, but also some of the most spiritually draining places. And I also mean that for some of these podcasts that a lot of people listen to that are spend so much time degrading. Sometimes it can be just the music. Sometimes just listening to what's on the radio can be so demoralizing, so demeaning, and it's just since it's to a good beat, we don't think about it as much. And I know that this is incredibly cliche, but just abstaining from that music and not streaming it. One, you're not giving them the money for it, and two, you're not inundating yourself with just being spoken evil over consistently, constantly. And they don't accept it the other way around. There's constant complaints that women rappers, they talk too much about their bodies, they talk too much about what they're doing in the bedroom, but that's all the men talk about. That's all they talk about. But the second it's done in return, they have a huge problem. They're very vocal about it. They're very adamant that they don't want to listen to a lot of that stuff. And they shut it down, and they have all sorts of words to use to describe that person, and they'll put it in their next song. So it's I don't like to hear that we're too much of snowflakes about it, because the other way around, they're definitely snowflakes about it. But at the same time, it's okay to unfollow. It's okay to opt out. It's okay to just let it be with supporting people who support your oppression. And I don't think it's fair for people who are like, oh, well, separate the art from the artist. You guys can't have fun. I have plenty of fun. I have so many Black women on my list of artists that I listen to, of authors that I want to read, have read. There's so much good out there. They make so much good art. They make so much good music. There's no deficit there. And the best best part is I don't have to deal with somebody who, with knowing that this person just got paid by me, but they think I'm like a piece of crap. If I'm going to apply that to somebody who doesn't want to serve me in a restaurant, I should be able to apply it to somebody who thinks little of me, but they sing music. I should be able to apply it the same way. But for some reason, people separate both of those. I don't know. They don't separate the chef from the meal, but at any rate. So I was going to say also making time for the altar, time in nature, the either or, right? Nature can be your altar, you can be your altar, but taking that time within, taking that spiritual time. I know for a lot of us, especially like working full time, it can be so difficult. And it can be difficult to find time alone. It can be difficult to find time for all of the little pleasures in life. But I do believe that when you practice a religion such as we do, which is ancestrally based, ancestrally focused, we have the unique opportunity that our spirituality teaches us at every moment, right? It's not hypothetical. My ancestors were here. My ancestors accomplished. My ancestors had goals. My ancestors did many things that I can learn from. And so for me, it's not this opportunity to do like anything that's outside of me necessarily. It's all within me. It's all around me. It impacts my family. It's my bloodline. So it's a really unique way of which the spiritual and the physical world do bridge together. And I think that that's what's so powerful about it, is that when your spiritual time as a hoodoo to connect with your ancestors can be praying at the altar. It can be lighting a candle. It can be anointing or a sacred bath. It can also be reading the word of some of your ancestors, an ancestor that inspires you. You can read bell hooks, you can read Audre Lorde, you can read James Baldwin, and you can become inspired and you can learn and you can grow from in those different spaces and sectors that you are specifically interested in. Our ancestors span such a wide, variety of topics and understandings and, religious understandings, spiritual understandings, political understandings. And there's this wonderful opportunity for us to learn from our ancestors in so many different sectors. So I think that that's, really what I want to emphasize is this ability to find new ways to connect with our ancestors and apply that spiritually to our everyday life. And also, I would say, let me see. And this goes for me as well. I would say making sure we're continuing to do spiritual protections around our house, spiritual blessings around our house. I do have plans to make some videos showing different ways to clean specific areas of your house spiritually, just so we can all do that together. Because for me, I like to clean with other people. I did housekeeping over the summer, and it was just nice to always have the sounds with me while I was cleaning. And I think, that can be a way for us all to connect together. But speaking of spiritual protection, obviously that's not enough. I highly encourage every one of us to not only spiritually protect our home, but physically protect our home. And yes, I do think that this means, one, perhaps getting a concealed gun, a concealed weapon of some sort to protect your home, especially if you are somebody who is by yourself. And as also learning how to do some sort of self-defense kind of course. This is important because, like I said, we saw not even 24 hours. It was the next day. It was like 12 hours after the announcement of Trump. People are out there posting stuff about your body, my choice, which is essentially a rape threat. And I'm all above. I'm not above people protecting themselves. I think that's incredibly important, and it's incredibly important for people to be able to, disarm and walk away, be able to, in some way physically get away. And so I encourage for those of us who have left off to get back into physically getting more fit, and if that means starting with yoga and moving up slowly through from your beginner all the way to, I don't know what else people do, hit workouts, Pilates, but we need to be able to physically help ourselves as well as the spiritual protection of our home. And that's why I did also say, perhaps look into your state's gun laws and figure out how you can protect yourself in these situations too, because they're being very clear. It's not a game to me when somebody says, "Oh, that's an option for me. I'm willing to do that." It's not a game. You need to take that threat for what it is and be very serious about what that means. Because people out here are going to stop taking no for an answer, especially if you start touting off about 4B and the Femme freeze and like, I'm not doing all of these different things, like the celibacy, the American celibacy 2025. I've seen a lot of different names for these movements over different platforms, from Reddit to Facebook to YouTube. And I think these are all really great ideas. Opting out celibacy is a perfectly great idea if that works for you and your lifestyle. However, just know a lot of these dudes are angry, and that was where a lot of their votes came from. Their vote came from a wish to go back to subjugate, and a lot of women were right there with them for various reasons. But that's why I say, and I emphasize, protection of yourself, physically being able to, as well as when we're spiritually keeping up with our protections. There's ways to do both, because this is also a spiritual war. Like, let this not be confused. When Christians vote for Israel, they are voting for the end times. They believe fully that this, like, the white Jewish people have to be there for the end times to come, so that all of us undesirables, us pagans, hoodoos, Wiccans, etc., all of us wrong believers will perish. All of us gay people, the femmes, the queers, all of us are going to perish, and the Christians are going to be right. And they believe the Jewish people are going to perish too. Let that not be mistaken. They believe those Israelis are not going to make it to the end times either, because they don't believe in Jesus or whatever the reality of that is. But let us not be mistaken that this is a spiritual war. And, atheists are like, I don't believe in it. You don't have to believe in it, because they just voted because of it. Your life is now physically altered because of what they want and because of what they believe in. So that's why the spiritual part of this is so, so important. But that's why I also want to make sure we're not just stuck on that part. We're also focused on the fact that there is a real physical threat. And you do not want to get pregnant unless you want to get pregnant, unless you want that baby, unless that is where you are ready to be. Because otherwise, like I said, we're in a position where a federal abortion ban could be around the corner. They have the means to do it, the ability to do it. It doesn't matter what they said they plan to do. We already know what Project 2025 is. We already know that we've been seeing how that groundwork has been laid. So it's up to us to work with our head and understand what is actually coming. So my next suggestion is for work environments. If your job requires you to be in such environments that are hostile towards women, towards Black people, towards queer people, what have you, whatever it is, also making sure that either one, you are protected in that way. You can wear your amulets, you can cover your head, you can do your cleansing so that before and after you leave, those all help. I feel like those help me working in a bar, especially in a rural area where you get a few drinks in the people up here, and suddenly they are inspired to tell you about all their racial trauma from like the third grade. And it's like, I'm not your therapist. You should not feel comfortable saying this. And it gets awkward. It does. And so I have to take a lot of special precautions just to work sometimes, just in preparation for the Confederate flag shirts, just in preparation for the ignorance, just in preparation for the racial conversation that is bound to come at least once a week, but usually multiple times. And that goes for just living around here, just going into any store, going into any bar, I'm liable to see that. So I wear the amulet. I do what I can to keep myself spiritually covered, but also finding ways that we can move out of these work environments, where we can move into better work environments, where we can, if you're working for yourself, raise your prices. If you are contracting, asking for what you're worth, because we often undervalue and we are undervalued, and finding ways for us to get those finances, work on that both in the spiritual sector and the physical, is another way that we can focus within on ourselves and on our community and get ourselves better for what is going to be a few hard years to come. Next, I would say for social media, we already kind of talked about this, but blocking, disengaging, letting go of people who clearly don't have your interest in mind, clearly are against what you're against. It's the time to argue is pretty much done. They're going to get what they want, and you need to find a way to keep yourself safe. So be they just a Facebook friend, be they a real life somebody, family friend, be they a celebrity. Those should be the easiest, but sometimes for a lot of people, they can be the hardest to let go. I remember when I realized I didn't have the same beliefs as Erykah Badu when she was talking about some little girl's skirt being too short. I was like, absolutely, I can't. When she was calling R. Kelly her brother, I was like, I can't. And that was really hard for me. It was hard for me to reconcile Erykah Badu with calling R. Kelly her brother, and what my beliefs are of protecting Black women, protecting Black girls. That was a very hard pill for me to swallow, but I managed. I unfollowed. I let that go. I stopped being happy every time I saw her everywhere, because I was able to disengage from that, because that is dangerous to me. That is dangerous to my children. That is dangerous to the world that I want to live in. And that's what I encourage us all to do for all of those celebrities like that. I mean, you don't have to have no joy in your life whatsoever, but for people who are promoting, or in their regular life, or in their art, or in the media, promoting going against your rights, and your ability to get to the world that you want, I absolutely say the block button is there. It's time to disengage. It's time to not always respond to everything that this person posts and be on their every little thing. The time for celebrities is done. We need to move past it. And I just think, supporting ourselves, supporting our community, supporting that lifestyle is more so how these next few years just need to go for our own safety. So we're almost getting to the end of my list now, thankfully. So I've already talked about disengaging from anti-woman, anti-femme media, disengaging from those who are looking to separate, subjugate, and more, people who are looking to find all these differences between people, make other people your enemy. It's not that we're making other people the enemy. It's that we're focusing in on ourselves. We're focusing in on our own needs. We're focusing in on the needs of our own family, our own community, our own children, ourselves. And that's a really important thing to do, I think, in the history of Hoodoo, looking at how our ancestors operated, was those times where you needed to look within, and focus on taking care of ourselves and making sure we were using our magic specifically for those reasons, because that's going to take up a lot of our energies in the coming years. So finally, I want to talk about community, reaching out, creating the communities, reconvening. I'm planning on trying to do that here more by going live more and making more videos, but also that's important to do in smaller sectors, maybe in like small Zoom classes together, or maybe in person, hopefully locally, if you're with other people, or there's a way for you all to reconvene maybe once a month, finding these ways to have community and be out in the community while representing who we genuinely are. I was saying this on my other channel about being Green Party, and how people are like, you guys are never there, and then you just pop up every 4 years. And it's like, but we are here. We're not representing the colors. We're not saying anything. We're not being politically active in that way, but we are physically in the community putting in work. We're not just saying, hey, this is the Green Party doing this. We're not saying what it is that's doing this. And I think it's kind of the same when when it comes to being a sacred woman, being a hoodoo. You don't have to advertise it to everybody because we're not trying to convert people like a political party would or like Christians might. But when it comes to other people in our community, reaching out to each other, making it known that that's, why we're reaching out to each other can really make an impact the same way, when you realize that you're just not alone, but that someone else has that thing to say to you. So, I mean, I'm currently getting to a place where I think that I can start doing sacred woman classes again. I think, I'm like doing better in the different like ways in which I've become so unhealthy and so unorganized and just, so distracted over the years. However, I just want to encourage other people to also do that, reach out, get that inspiration. And so once again, I do have that class coming up this weekend. I would love to see you there so we can talk Ugly Jugs, we can talk Hoodoo, we can talk the ancestors, and we can all get together. That's this weekend, November 23rd and 24th, 4 to 7 p.m. Let's talk Hoodoo. Let's learn about Ugly Jugs. I've run this class by a professor. I've run this class by professionals. So I'm pretty sure that you're going to enjoy this time together. And I know I'm really going to enjoy being able to, just jump back into the community and enjoy that time with you all. All right. Thank you so much for watching, especially whoever has been here for such a long time. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you for following the channel and, just being here all these years. It's been so nice to know that when I come back, we can always talk together. And I really think now more than ever, it's important to come back. And it's also important because so many people are so burned out. And that's just the reality. So those of us who aren't as burned out, those of us who haven't been as active on the social media side of this, as the other people get tired and step down, it's kind of, I think it's our job to step up and tag ourselves in and carry some of that labor when we can. So at any rate, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the class this weekend. May your ancestors and spirit guides be with you at every crossroads. I'll see you next time.